The most common that I often hear is about science. They say that science has buried God. So how would you, comment or answer to that?
Yeah, the view that science has buried God. The idea behind this view that science is somehow trumps all of any beliefs about the supernatural or God, I think is really misled in many ways. So, as an example, I often have people, sometimes I'll have an atheist say, "Give me scientific evidence for God." My response is simply something like, "Why would I want to do a silly thing like that?" And the reason is because I'm trying to get at a certain point. Because I explain it to them this way: science is a great and wonderful tool for studying the physical world. However, it is a tool that is limited to only studying the physical world. And God, if he exists, is by definition a non-physical entity. So, in other words, you cannot use something like science, which is limited to the physical, to try and investigate something non-physical. That's what we call in philosophy a category fallacy. So, as an illustration, suppose you and your friend go to the beach, and an hour later he comes back and he tells you that he just made a remarkable discovery. He just discovered that there's no plastic on the beach, and he has come to the conclusion that plastic doesn't exist. And then you look over his shoulder and you see that the beach is littered with plastic, and you think to ask, why would you say something like that? Why would you believe that? And then he pulls out his metal detector and he says, because I just spent an entire hour going through this beach, combing the beach with this metal detector, and I found a lot of metal, but never once did I find an ounce of plastic. Now, of course, the problem with this situation is that the tool that he's using is a wrong tool for the assessment, because what he's using is not a plastic detector. He is using a metal detector. And of course, ironically, his metal detector is made almost entirely of plastic. I think in the same way, when non-believers are asking for, quote, scientific evidence for God, they are trying to use a metal detector to find plastic. It is, again, the wrong tool for the assessment. Now, to be clear, there are philosophical arguments that have premises that can be backed up by science, such as a Kalam cosmological argument. But at the end of the day, it's a philosophical argument with scientific backing to it. In other words, a science doesn't, quote unquote, prove or conclude therefore God exists. Rather, it's we have this scientific data that have metaphysical implications that lead to a conclusion that God exists. So no, science hasn't buried God any more than metal detectors have disproved plastic does not exist. Again, it's a category fallacy, and many atheists, non-believers, especially online, seem to miss that fact.